RiverBender.com. Sorry, I had to work. Dan Brannon making a cameo on the show. Just you couldn't see him or hear him. Lev, how are we doing, man?
Doing great.
So I want to say something real quick. You've been on the show and you've been sitting at that microphone. That microphone was over here today, and I thought my show was just like always going to sound like an old junky AM radio station. It's that darn microphone that broke on me today. Now I can hear everybody clearly, and I feel like I've been deaf for like 4 months. I'm what? You know, not anymore. Now cicadas have come. I don't know if you saw. We had an individual on, Jen Papin, who had just an absorbent amount of cicadas. 13 wheelbarrows full of molts. Okay,
Wow.
A guy from University of Illinois came down and said that's the most I've seen at one point in time, and this was,
Yeah, for sure.
13 years ago. Now she came on to kind of give some home remedies, how you don't spray any spray on them because it can kill the life around it and any dog, anything that eats them. But let's hear this from more of a Department of Natural Resources standpoint.
Yeah. So I don't recommend you kill cicadas at all.
No.
They only last for 2 to 3 weeks,
Right.
a month maximum. And when you introduce pesticides into your environment, you're going to just kill other insects. Cicadas are actually an incredible resource for the natural world. They provide things like the carbon that they have in their shells, the nitrogen fixation. Plants actually have a better growing year the year following cicadas. They feed everything from squirrels to ducks to other insects. It's just it's as if all of a sudden someone threw 1,000 steaks into the woods and everybody gets to eat.
And that's one. So you've heard it now once, and now you've heard it confirmed by the Department of Natural Resources. We've been saying it. That's what we said the first time. Quit trying to kill these things. They're good for the environment.
Yeah, they don't bite. They can't bite. They're actually the way that they're designed, so to speak, is their abdomens are hollow. So they don't even weigh that much. They don't cause any crop or pest damage. They don't spread disease. They're basically just there to make more cicadas, and then they'll go back into the ground after that, and in 13 or 17 years, we'll see some more.
Now, I wanted to ask you about this zombie fungus that we keep hearing about. So that's already been in ants. I've known, like, not the same one, but...
Yeah, so it's called Massospora cicadina. There's no common name for it because it's such a weird and niche fungus, and it has a really cool biology. So there's actually 2 species of this Massospora. There's one's Massospora cicadina. I don't remember the other one, but they affect periodical cicadas and also annual cicadas. So there are actually 7 species, I believe, of cicada that we have in the United States. And when you talk about your 13-year cicadas and your 17-year cicadas, it's not all just one 13-year species and one 17-year species. There's actually a few species in that genus. I think the genus has a really cool name. It's Magicicada.
Yeah.
Like magic cicada. And these cicadas, they have this fungus that, depending on what species this fungus will actually produce a chemical. One of them produces a amphetamine type substance. The other one produces psilocybin, like the kind you
Call
find
that
in
a
magic
Granite City
mushrooms.
substance. Should have said that. I'm sorry. Yell at me later, Granite City.
Man, but
Sorry.
you're fine. Just,
Don't let you keep going here. Sorry. I mean,
well, this fungus, what it does is it basically latches onto the abdomen of the cicada, and it'll eat the genitalia of the cicada off and the abdomen of the cicada off, and dose it with these chemicals. And the cicada that's been dosed will go bananas and fly around and try to mate with everything and spread its spores. And that's how it actually continues its life cycle. But it's only 1.5 to 5% of cicadas are actually infected with this fungus.
well, is there anything that the department's going to do with this last round? Because, maybe that fungus and, droppings going down into the soil, and I know that I saw a bunch of, news stories about what happens then. Is there any tests going to be happening with this fungus to see how it affects them?
Not that I'm aware of. I know that there are universities that are doing studies on them. But there really isn't much to do, and people just like to talk about zombie fungus.
Right.
This fungus has been around, co-evolving with the cicada for however long this fungus has been around.
Really?
Yeah, and so there's no reason for any intervention to be done. It's not damaging our cicada population. We're talking about an animal that has trillions and trillions and trillions of individuals that come out at one time. Mm-hmm. So they're using this life history strategy where they are basically throwing as many individuals into the environment as they can, because the idea is how can a predator eat all of us?
Right.
So there's just so many of them that it doesn't matter if 5% of them get a fungus, 5% of them get eaten, 10% of them get eaten. You just have so many, it's not an issue.
So I know you said that the fungus, there's 2 different types, correct?
Yes.
Now, does it affect both broods, the 13 and 17 year?
Yeah. So there are the whole cicada.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Is fascinating. So depending on what species of cicada, the fungus. Now I don't know if it's a subspecies of fungus or a separate species, but this whole family of Massospora affects each brood slightly differently in how it causes them to zombify.
Right. Now, why does it eat the genitalia and abdomen? Is that just where the only part of really meat is of the cicada?
So actually the abdomen of the cicada is hollow, and they have these. That's how they make that noise.
Okay.
And it does that because it doesn't care if the cicada is reproducing. That's just the way that it gets into the cicada's body.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't care. It doesn't care if the cicada reproduces. It wants the cicada to go and spread its spores. And that's basically its easiest entryway into the cicada's body.
That makes a ton of sense. And now this year, I mean, is there ever any way to project how many cicadas were upon an area? Because, I mean, it seemed like, man, in River, especially with older tree lines and trees that were more mature and I guess growth that was already there, it seemed like they got hit and pummeled around here. I mean, we were talking 13 wheelbarrows full of cicada molts is a lot of molts.
Yeah, so as far as predicting goes, you can sort of predict how many are going to be in an area depending on how disturbed the soil has been. So cicadas actually nest 16 inches underground, and they will emerge once the ground has reached 68 degrees. Mm-hmm. And so if an area has been undisturbed, there's a lot of mature oaks and forests out there, then there are going to be a lot of cicadas on that tree. But if you're in like a small city center or areas that have, forests that have been disturbed a lot, you'll see less. It's actually, in some areas, there are up to 1 million cicadas per square acre, which is a lot of cicadas.
Now, how are they able to live for 13 years? I mean, they're alive. I mean, as a kid, I always thought these things just came out of the ground and were just happened to be born then. But these suckers have been under the ground for years.
So the short answer to this is that collectively we don't really know, but there is a few theories. Some more out there than others, but a lot of it has to do with what they're eating. So when they're underground, they're actually going through larval stages. I believe there are 7 or 8 larval stages that they go through before they become adults and molt, and do the whole noise thing that they do. And they're actually eating something called xylem. So on a regular tree, all trees produce sap and xylem.
Okay.
Xylem is it's like 98% water, 99% water, and it comes off the roots. It's basically root liquid with a tiny bit of nutrients in it.
Okay.
It's actually so nutritionally poor that cicadas, the only way they can survive off of it is by having a symbiotic bacteria in their gut that helps them extract more nutrients for it, makes peptides, essentially amino acids.
Wow.
And so with these cicadas, it's just crazy how they're able to do that. It's how do I formulate this? So the 13-year cicadas, and the 17-year cicadas, so they're actually coming up in such a way that their biology and their ecology is connects with the predators in an area.
Okay.
So predators have these cyclic cycles of population booms, and so by coming out on these odd years, they're actually coming out on years that animals that are eating them there are less of them. And by being so far apart, they're because they're such a good food source.
Yeah.
Them being there isn't going to make it in such a way that the next time they come out, there's going to be a ton
A
more.
waiting line.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
ton more predators.
That is so fascinating to me. And now, what can you do? I mean, what can they do to really study this? Because it's not like, I mean, I guess if you wanted to, you could like dig like 20 feet down on the other side and tunnel up so you can get 16 inches under the ground and put a camera somewhere, I'm sure. But
So there are people who do studies on these cicadas,
Wow.
and they'll dig up cicada nymphs out of the ground and perform different studies. One person I read about, I believe he was in Missouri. He did this study where he was trying to see if they're telling time by the contents of the xylem, because the amount of nutrients changes as the year goes on, and that maybe they're able to count the years with the xylem. But the thing about that is cicada nymphs have high mortality rate when you move them out of the ground.
okay.
So it's just they're very hard to study, especially with something with such a long cycle.
Well,
so there's a lot of mystery surrounding this insect.
That's what I think so fascinating. I mean, it's really interesting to know, especially, people were so freaking out over here about this 17 and 13 year, brood coming. We didn't get the both broods.
Only 4 counties got both broods.
And honestly, even there, that's where it really gets exciting. Do they ever have a brood 13 or the 13-year mate with the 17-year? Is that
They're
happen?
different species.
Wow,
So and even within those broods, they're different species.
that is so fascinating.
And the way that they distinguish species is the sound. They sound different. Their calls. So if you really listen to, if you're in the woods and you hear those cicadas, you hear that low rumbling sound.
Yeah.
That's one species. There's a high-pitched species. And that's so they're able to tell who to mate with and who not to mate
That
with.
is so wild. Because I would have thought, 13 years with 13 years. And that's interesting. So even within the 13-year broods, there's still different species.
Yes.
Now, take me through, because every year we have cicadas. That's one thing
Yes.
we keep kind of forgetting whenever we hear they're coming. Well, they're already here. It's just not as pronounced.
Yeah, so we have annual cicadas that come out every year in smaller numbers. And then we also have the whole cicada genus. There's like thousands of animals, of insects in this genus. And there's actually in Fiji, there's a 4-year cicada, and in West Africa, there's an 8-year cicada.
How big are those suckers?
Same size.
Really?
Yeah, they're just, the cicadas are all about that big.
Okay.
And the Fiji ones are really cool. They're all yellow and striped like tigers. It's really interesting. So
Wow.
there's just really cool insects.
Well, now, with that being said, it's a stupid question, but I have time to ask it. In theory, because I got 0 cicadas because my house had it before I bought it, they had to repair a wall, so they dug into the ground a little bit. There was really I had one cicada, I think, see me, and I felt really depressed and lonely and unloved and pretty ugly, quite frankly, love. I thought I deserved more. And, well, in theory, could I go over to, let's say, my grandma's house who had just a F ton of these cicadas? Could I take a 5-gallon bucket of mulch and kind of crush them up and spread them on my grass for nutrients?
Yeah.
I mean, in theory.
In theory, anything that you're returning back to the soil, I'd say that probably the dead cicada carcasses are a little more nutritious.
Yeah.
In fact, you can actually eat cicadas.
Yeah. See, did you eat one?
I have. They're.
What's the taste?
It's not bad. Of all the insects I've eaten, cicadas probably taste the least. It wasn't great, but
Still a bug.
it was pretty good. Nutty, crunchy.
Very interesting. How'd you eat it? How was it prepared? Is the
I
question.
cooked it in chili oil with some garlic and salt, like I read online.
No kidding. What's the worst tasting bug?
It'd have to be grubs. Anything
Really?
with a squidgy, waxy
Yeah.
body.
Oh, I could see that. But I just thought, because you said normally the plants grow a little bit better the following year.
Yeah.
I have some things that they're already growing well, but, kind of sprinkle it on there. It's just the soil around
Why
it.
not? It doesn't
See if it
hurt.
happens.
Yeah. All plants want nitrogen. That's why carnivorous plants are carnivorous, by the way, not for other.
So they can get nitrogen from the
Yes.
Duh. Okay, this makes sense. Now, I wanted to ask you something while I have you here. Anyway, we'll go back to cicadas. Is about these plant eating or these insect eating plants.
Yeah.
We all know about the Venus flytrap, but that's
Yeah.
boring. I want one of those suckers that it falls into the middle of it and it basically gets spewed alive with acid. That sounds pretty cool. What do they call those?
Pitcher plants.
Pitcher plants. Do they? Can we grow those here?
Yeah, I actually think there is a native pitcher in Illinois
Wow.
that lives so pretty much all. Well, I can't say all, but in the United States, most of the plants are So we're like carnivorous plants that we have grow in sandy soils. Like Venus flytraps are from South Carolina. They grow in the Piedmont because those soil types don't have a lot of nitrogen. And so I think that in the Sandhill area of northeastern Illinois, somewhere in that region, there is a pitcher plant that grows here.
That is fascinating. I just thought it'd be cool to have one, you know?
They're cool. They're really cool.
Well, getting back to cicadas, what are now after they're gone? I mean, this brood's pretty much all but wrapped up at this point, correct? Are they still?
I think
around?
a week or two. We're going to see some stragglers. But the worst of it's over.
And now, what are we going to see following that? You know, are we going to see any type of uptick in any type of wildlife or any type of
possibly the effects will be more pronounced next year because everything's on a kind of a year cycle.
Okay, yeah.
But you're going to see, an increase in the number of birds. There's been studies that show plants actually have larger trees have larger canopies and produce more fruit that you're following a cicada. It's just like a nutrient dump into the ground. And so suddenly there's going to be a lot more of everything.
That's really cool. Well, how's Pollinator Day shaping up?
Pollinator Day is shaping up great. I'm really excited.
What day is that again?
June 22nd, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
There you go. And you can learn more by going to what website?
Our Facebook has information, and it's going to be on the IDNR website too.
Well, there you have it, Lev. Anything else about cicadas we don't know about?
The way they make noise is really cool too.
Oh, fill me in.
They have these they're ribs, but they're sort of shaped like an instrument, and they have these little tiny muscles on the side of their bodies that will actually vibrate over that rib at over, I think it's like 1,000 times per second.
Wow.
So that's how they do it.
How long does it take them to go from white to an adult? You know, when they're coming out of their shell, they're like that ugly white.
So the second they get on that tree, they're breaking off. So if you see them along the bark, so before they even get up into the leaves, because what they do is they lay their eggs on the branches of leaves, and then on the branches of plants, and then those nymphs hatch, drop to the ground, bury themselves. So as they're making their way up, they're breaking out of that mold and making their way up to the tree to mate.
I'll be darned. And then to go back into their regular color, what's it look like?
What do you mean?
Because they're white for a second, and
yeah, that's just their exoskeleton hardening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sort of like beef jerky.
That's super
let it dry
cool.
out.
I love it. That's awesome. I'm learning a lot today. 1028, Lev. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
Take a quick break. Riverbend Patriots up next.